We were here in special session, and we were in a point of uncertainty. We didn't know what was going on in the federal government. Sometimes I still wonder what is going on in the federal government. But when I heard the floor debate in special session and listened to everyone around the circle, I supported the piece of legislation. And not too many Republican senators did support the bill. But my reasoning for doing that, again, is I listened to everyone speak, and the thought of Connecticut residents going hungry or being cold is alarming. And how I make my decisions here is listening to everyone, weighing out the facts, and doing what I think is best for the majority of my constituents. So I did support the legislation, and the reasons why I did was we weren't in session, there was uncertainty, and I was under the impression from hearing this conversation that the money would be used for very specific things, and there would be a process to make sure that it was protected. You know, I don't want to get in the habit of bypassing our guardrails or making different processes, because we have a set of processes that we always utilize, and it takes a lot into consideration. It brings the public to the floor so you can hear what they have to say. The decisions that are made by us, and we can be held accountable by our constituents. And when I made that decision, again, we were not in session, and there was a set of money for a certain amount of time just in case. And I supported that. And as we see, the two times that monies were allocated out of the $500 million, there was a long list of things that it went to. Just over $200 million, maybe a little bit more. That's a lot of money. Normally, that money would be allocated and dispersed with a process. That's why we're here. We make the decisions, hear the facts, and then we dole out certain funds. And if we vote to extend this, it kind of diminishes the purpose of us being here. We could easily put this money back into the fund and allocate the money where it is needed, when it is needed. We are in session. So, you know, I'd have a hard time supporting this. You know, we've seen the vote tallies on the amendment, so I do assume if this bill is being called today that it will pass. So we tried to run amendments to find those safeguards to make sure we're protecting our taxpayer dollars. And as I said before, I supported that bill originally in special session, and I had no problem voting with the other side of the aisle because I thought it was the right thing to do at that time. And I fully support not supporting this bill for the same reasons, that it doesn't make sense. We need to apply common sense when we're making these type of decisions. And again, it's bypassing processes. A lot of the other senators that have spoke already made points. I'm not going to belabor that. And what I do want to do is put some safeguards in place if in fact this does pass. And I have an amendment, and Madam President, if the clerk would be so kind to call the amendment he's in possession of. It is LCO number 678.
Mr. Clerk.
LCO number 678, Senate Amendment C.
Thank you, Senator Cicarella.
Thank you. I move adoption of the amendment, and I just seek leave to summarize.
Thank you. The amendment has been moved, and please do proceed to summarize, sir.
Thank you. And at the conclusion, I do ask that there is a roll call vote.
And we will have a roll call vote.
Excellent. Thank you. So the amendment that I have put forward, I believe, is not only common sense, but really should be a friendly amendment. We have processes that are very similar when allocating other types of money to multiple different organizations, municipalities. We have STEEP, we have SIF. And really what's going to do, this amendment does, is put some safeguards in place for any of this money that will be delegated from the $300 million that we're talking about today. It's just asking that in the application process, it is very detailed. It talks about the reason why it is needed, how much is needed, what is the public purpose, what is it going to be doing, and how will it serve our community. And it also not only has safeguards on the front end, but as well as on the back end. What it also does is after this money is allocated and approved, with those series of questions being answered, it has, again, checks and balances. You'll be able to see with reporting, where did the money go? How was it utilized? And I believe that's important. You know, we have a lot of wonderful nonprofits in Connecticut that do so much for our community with so little. And when working with the nonprofits, it's eye-opening to see, number one, how many nonprofits do the same thing. And when dealing with these nonprofits, have these conversations, they all have their specific areas of success and maybe expertise. We look at nonprofits that deal with workforce development. Some do parts of that process very well, others not so well. But there isn't a way to have checks and balances to see, are they successful? Is this money, the taxpayers' dollars, being utilized successfully and smart? This would have that. This would tell us, where is the money going? How much administrative costs? How much was for lobbying or advocacy? What are the other income sources? All of the different expenditures, pass-through income. It's very transparent. We talk about that. We see without oversight, there is room for waste, fraud, and abuse. And I do believe this is something we're going to hear a lot about this session, is paying attention to the waste, fraud, and abuse. And this is going to implement that just like STEEP and SIF have in place. So it's just simply common sense. I wouldn't understand why we would not find this to be very reasonable. All we're saying is we want oversight of hundreds of millions of dollars of our taxpayers' money. You know, speaking of the nonprofits, there's a nonprofit in Wallingford, and they do so much for their community. Just over the lines in Meriden, there's another nonprofit that works with a similar, in a similar space with similar demographic, and the Wallingford nonprofit gets substantially less, but does so much more. And it doesn't make a difference in how much money they're actually receiving. That just does not make sense. This process that would be put in place if this amendment passes would be applied to this specific money, the $300 million that are left. I think this is something that we should start to look at anytime we're giving money to nonprofits or non-public agencies that receive our taxpayer dollars. I do believe, again, it is common sense. I do believe it is a friendly amendment, as we do this all the time with STEEP, with SIF, and it's going to accountability and transparency. It's not only just to prevent fraud and waste, but it's also going to highlight the nonprofits or these agencies that are doing great work, and they should be rewarded for doing their great work. So when it comes time next year to allocate money to a nonprofit, we could see, were they successful? That's how we should be making these decisions. And for that reason, I urge everyone here to support the amendment we have before us. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator.